I have been reborn. After being reborn, I finally realized I was the Villainess, looking at the male lead whose clothes were disheveled as he groaned on the bed, all because I drugged him. I opened the door and ran. Little did I know, I'd run straight into the arms of my sworn enemy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. The man's deep-set eyes were utterly captivating, with thick brows, a high-nose bridge, and lips neither too thin nor too full, every feature exuding nobility and elegance. But now was not the time to admire his beauty, because those brown eyes of his were fixed unwaveringly on me. Extremely embarrassed, I awkwardly murmured, "Your Excellency, the Prime Minister." Guilty conscience made me take a step back, only to bump against the bedroom door that hadn't been fully closed. With a creak, the door swung open. Ling Che's gaze swept past me, instantly landing on Guci lying disheveled on the bed, his eyes brimming with mocking amusement. He seemed to chuckle softly. The Grand Princess grows ever more lawless, to think she'd set her sights on General Gu. He gently stroked my hair, the smile at the corner of his lips growing increasingly evident. "This is bad." My legs went weak, nearly buckling beneath me. The Ling family of the capital had served as officials for generations, all being fine generals highly valued by the imperial court. Particularly in this generation, they produced a young and promising prime minister who was as close as brothers with the current emperor. But this prime minister wasn't just temperamental and unpredictable, he was also my sworn enemy, as the emperor's blood sister. A proud imperial princess spoiled rotten since childhood. I'd never feared heaven or earth, except for this man standing before me. This man governed me on my brother's behalf, and whenever I caused trouble, he'd punish me without mercy. Utterly devoid of any chivalry toward women, so I feared him, and disliked him too. Today was my 18th birthday, and under the influence of alcohol and my reckless friend's encouragement, I handed Guci a cup of drugged wine. Guci was the eldest young master of the Gu family and the newly appointed banner general. I'm a sucker for good looks. Guci's strikingly handsome features and refined, gentle demeanor perfectly matched my aesthetic preferences. The only pity was that despite my repeated advances, he kept rejecting me. Frustrated beyond measure, I seized this opportunity to drug him, determined to force the issue and make him mine. The normal plot should have been me taking advantage of Guci's unconsciousness to climb into his bed. Afterwards, Guci married me out of guilt. Unfortunately, everything changed after the female lead, Enruoshi, appeared. Unlike his guilt towards me, Guci's feelings for Enruoshi were true love, like a madwoman. I desperately framed and slandered her, even hiring assassins to eliminate Enruoshi. But naturally, it all ended in failure. After my schemes were exposed, Guci divorced me and went on to marry Enruoshi. How could I, a princess, possibly accept this? So I caused a scene at their wedding ceremony, brandishing a dagger in an attempt to kill Enruoshi. Guci accidentally stabbed the dagger into my heart while trying to stop me. Even now, the memory of that stabbing pain makes my heart tremble with fear. To avoid repeating past mistakes, I naturally kept my distance from the male and female protagonists, but right now, I need to deal with the trouble right in front of me first. Every time I caused trouble and got caught by Ling Che before, the lightest punishment was standing facing the wall in reflection, while the worst involved being whipped. I really didn't want Ling Che to spank me again. Inside the room, Ling Che sat calmly on a chair, his slender fingers idly playing with the jade ring on his hand, yet his eyes never left me for even a moment. Guci's unbearable moans filled every corner of the room, yet he seemed completely indifferent to them. I shuddered under the gaze of those icy, emotionless eyes. Hugging my shoulders, I stammered guiltily, "Lord Chancellor, it's not what you're thinking." Ling Che's scrutinizing gaze fell upon me. Oh, then what should it be? To seduce Guci. I wore only a thin white garment that faintly revealed the light pink undergarment beneath. Now facing Ling Che, who towers a full head above me, his lofty gaze must have seen right through me. I stammered out an explanation. General Gu drank too much. I was just helping him back to his room to rest. Nothing happened between Guci and me, no matter what Ling Che suspects. He ultimately has no proof. Is that so? Then why is he in such a state? I don't know either. Such a clumsy lie. And right before Ling Che's eyes, my conscience weighed heavy as I lowered my head, not daring to meet his gaze. The man before me remained silent for what felt like an eternity. Just when I thought he'd believed me, he suddenly reached out and lifted my chin, gently tucking the stray hair behind my ear. He remarked casually, "At the banquet just now, I saw with my own eyes how you handed that glass of wine to General Gu. How could you possibly not know?" Hearing this, my pupils contracted as I stared at Ling Che in disbelief. He actually saw everything. Then why did he still come to ask me? Noticing my puzzled expression, Ling Che suddenly moved closer, his deep voice whispering by my ear. "It seems Her Highness still needs discipline. Not only has she learned to seduce men, but also to lie." Perhaps my nervous trembling amused him, for he suddenly let out a low chuckle. The next moment, he swiftly lifted the feverish Guci and tossed him into a bathtub filled with cold water. Ling Che's fingers trailed across my neck, the icy touch making my hair stand on end as he murmured, "Well, now that his matter is settled, how should I deal with you?" Shocked and furious, I snapped, "How dare you? I am the Grand Princess." The man chuckled lightly, his gaze fixed on me like a viper eyeing its prey. "Princess," he said, "don't forget your imperial brother has decreed that I am to oversee your every lesson, word by word," he enunciated. "Since you've erred, you must be punished." At his words, I turned to flee, but he seized my wrist and pulled me into his embrace. Ling Che remained expressionless as he removed his outer robe and draped it over my shoulders. Sensing my struggle, he frowned impatiently before bending down to scoop me up in his arms. I was utterly terrified. "What are you doing?" I demanded. Ignoring my question, Ling Che remained silent as he carried me out of the courtyard and straight into his waiting carriage. Ling Che brought me back to his private residence. At the end of the hallway was his room. The decor was in shades of black, white, and grey, with magnolia flowers on the desk emitting waves of fragrance. I struggled desperately but couldn't free myself from his restraining arms. "What exactly do you want?" Bang! Ling Che violently pushed open the partition door and flung me inside with force. The force was so great that I fell straight into the hot spring. The water soaked my hair and clothes. "It's so cold." That pervert Ling Che actually turned on cold water. Shivering from head to toe, I watched as Ling Xiao, still unsatisfied, scrubbed my body with one hand holding a bath ladle as if I were some filthy doll. The thin fabric couldn't withstand his rough handling and had already torn to shreds. Enough. Ling Che, nearly half naked, my fury now outweighed my fear. Ling Che narrowed his eyes slightly, brows furrowing, the telltale signs of his impending rage. Meeting his gaze, all the courage I'd mustered instantly evaporated. Knowing Ling Che couldn't resist soft pleas but hardened against demands, I mustered my courage to grab his sleeve and cooed, "That's enough, I'm already clean. Ling Che, I'm so cold." But before I could even warm my fingers around the fabric, the man swatted my hand away. "Wash yourself properly," he ordered. With those words, Ling Che left without another glance, slamming the door behind him, leaving me standing there utterly bewildered, staring wide-eyed at nothing. How could this be? Why did I have to cross paths with Ling Che again in this life? In my previous life, after marrying Guci, Ling Che resigned and went to the borderlands. I never saw him again until death. Knowing Ling Che's patience was limited, I dared not waste time. after quickly washing up. I threw on some clothes and went out. Ling Che lounged lazily in his chair. Finished washing, I nodded, feeling somewhat uneasy. Ling Che slowly rose and walked over to me, lowering his head to sniff at my neck. His warm breath brushed against my ear as his low, husky voice murmured, "You're indeed clean now." I couldn't figure out what Ling Che was up to, so I began inching toward the door. Well, it's getting late. I should return to the palace to sleep. Ling Che blocked the doorway before I could leave. Sleep here? I looked at him in surprise. What did you say? A faint smile curled at Ling Che's lips, yet it didn't reach his eyes. What, wanting to sleep in Guci's bed? I quickly shook my head. It was my fault. Today everything happened because I lost my senses. I promise you, nothing like this will ever happen again. The painful experiences from my past life remain vivid in my memory. I won't be foolish enough to chase after happiness that was never meant to be mine. Ling Che stared at me intently, then suddenly blurted out without context, "When was it?" "What? I'm asking you, when did you start liking Guci?" Ling Che suddenly erupted in fury, kicking over the table in front of him. The vase atop it shattered instantly into pieces. I didn't know how to respond, so I could only remain silent. But this enraged Ling Che. He grabbed my chin forcefully, compelling me to meet his gaze. "Speak. When exactly?" he demanded. "Outside." Lightning illuminated the sky as thunder rumbled ominously, and heavy rain began to pour. Boom! The thunder rolled down with deafening roars, shaking the very air. I screamed in fright and grabbed Ling Che's sleeve. Ling Che instinctively opened his arms, letting me hide in his embrace. After a long silence, the man's sigh sounded above my head. Tinged with helplessness, "It's thundering. Sleep here tonight, don't make me repeat myself." Midnight, span, lying on the bed, I squeezed my eyes shut tightly, forcing myself to fall asleep quickly. But the overwhelmingly aggressive masculine presence beside me was impossible to ignore. If it were any other man, I might have teased him a little, perhaps even pulled him into bed, but facing Ling Che, I wouldn't dare in 10,000 lifetimes. After all, my fear of him had been carved deep into my bones. I warily sensed Ling Che's every move, my body trembling slightly beneath the quilt. "Cold." Ling Che suddenly spoke, turning sideways to pull me into his embrace. I struggled to free myself from his arms. "This is improper." His arms abruptly tightened around me. "Stop squirming." Ling Che's husky voice sounded by my ear. "I'm in a bad mood today and don't want to hurt you. If you keep squirming, I won't hold back, Prime Minister." I was truly wrong. I'll never scheme against Guci again. I didn't know what nerve Ling Che had touched, so I could only keep apologizing, hoping his magnanimity would spare me. Staying by his side was pure torment. He might as well have just whipped me 20 times. But before I could finish speaking, Ling Che suddenly flipped over, pinning me beneath him, his rough kiss sealing my lips. "Don't." Completely unprepared for Ling Che's sudden move, after the initial shock wore off, I began pushing him away frantically, yet he remained immovable as a mountain, using one hand to pin my arms while the other gripped my chin, forcing my mouth open. As our eyes met, I finally saw the intense desire burning in Ling Che's gaze. My mind went completely blank. How had the plot veered so wildly off course? Did I reincarnate the wrong way? As my mind wandered, Ling Che's grip on my hand gradually loosened, his cool fingertips tracing across my skin, his palm pressed firmly against my waist. And just as he was about to lift my clothes, I hastily cried out, "Stop! Can't we talk this through properly? This isn't how you're supposed to play. My heart can't take it." I don't know if it's my imagination, but I actually saw a flicker of hurt and heartache in Ling Che's eyes. He froze in place, slowly loosening his grip. "Don't let me hear Guci's name from your lips again." With those words, he got up from the bed, pushed the door open, and walked out. I lay dazed on the bed, utterly baffled by Ling Che's inexplicable behavior. Could it be, he likes me? Is that even possible? If he liked me, how could he face me with that icy expression every single time? Do you whip me at the drop of a hat? This can't possibly be love. Lost in wild thoughts, I drifted off into a hazy sleep. I had a dream. In my dream, I seemed to become a wandering spirit, dangling from the roof beam. I surveyed my surroundings. The room was draped with white cloth, surrounded by white paper and offerings, with a massive coffin placed in the center. This seemed to be a funeral, except the person lying in that coffin was actually me. Was this what happened after I died in my past life? Lost in thought, someone entered through the door. Unlike his usual polished appearance, the man before me had disheveled hair and a pale face, his gaze fixed on me in the coffin as he burst into tears. I'm sorry, I came too late. The man's tears fell heavily to the ground one by one. I wanted to reach out and wipe them away, but my hand couldn't touch his face. Growing anxious, I said, "No, Ling Che, it's my own fault, not yours." Yet no matter what I said, Ling Che couldn't hear me. Gently stroking the face of the person in the coffin, he murmured to himself, "Ju Xiao Xiao, you really had no taste for someone like Guci. You even threw away your life. Yes, falling for someone who doesn't reciprocate your feelings, ending up alienated from everyone, and even losing your own life. What a pathetic waste. But why is Ling Che so heartbroken over someone like me who isn't even worth it?" I stayed with Ling Che the entire afternoon, never realizing one person could shed so many tears, especially someone as notoriously cold-blooded and ruthless as the Prime Minister. It wasn't until dusk began to fall that Ling Che slowly rose to his feet. Perhaps from kneeling too long, he suddenly staggered unsteadily. I wanted to catch him, but my hand brushed past his body helplessly, leaving me to watch as he fell to the ground. Ling Che, at that moment, despair and regret flooded every corner of my being. If not for my selfish cruelty, how could things have come to this? And Ling Che, he wouldn't be suffering like this. Ling Che slowly took out a hairpin from his bosom and placed it beside my head. The diamond on it was collected by me at the border, and the hairpin was carved by my own hands. I thought you might like it. A pale pink diamond shimmered under the night sky, and on the side of the hairpin were engraved the characters Xiao Xiao, Ju Xiao Xiao, I adore you. But alas, you will never know. Ling Che's hoarse voice rang out, each word striking deep into my heart. Ling Che, I hear you. Look, I'm right here in front of you. Look at me. I screamed hoarsely, straining desperately to embrace the person before me. Yet all my efforts were in vain. The man's bloodshot eyes and despairing figure burned into my vision. My heart aches so much. Turns out even when people die and become ghosts, their hearts can still ache. The moment I opened my eyes, I was met with Ling Che's handsome face. The man frowned slightly. What did you dream about? You look so heartbroken. I dreamed I died. The sorrow from my dream spilled into reality as I threw myself into Ling Che's arms. Ling Che, don't be sad. The man before me froze momentarily in surprise before suddenly embracing me back with visible delight. He patted my back reassuringly. It was just a dream. I'm here, nothing bad will happen to you. Feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, my consciousness gradually returned from the dreamscape. Then it suddenly struck me, I was still lying in Ling Che's bed. I suddenly felt uncomfortable. Ling Che, let go of me first. Sensing my resistance, the man who had been smiling brightly instantly turned cold. Noticing his expression, I explained, "No, it's just, you're holding me too tight. I can't breathe." Sure enough, hearing my words, the man's smile returned to his face. He loosened his grip slightly, but his arms around me hadn't let go yet. I found it amusing inwardly. This man must have learned face changing. Shifting moods faster than Sichuan opera masks, I nuzzled my head lightly against Ling Che's shoulder in a coquettish manner. I'm hungry. Perfect timing, I'm feeling a bit peckish too. Let's go eat first. This time Ling Che completely released his hold on me, but before I could finish speaking, he suddenly cupped my face and leaned in closer. A lingering kiss landed on my lips, his tongue brushing against them. This time, without waiting for him to take action, I willingly parted my lips, allowing him to entangle with me freely. When the kiss ended, Ling Che whispered my name by my ear, his voice husky and irresistibly sensual. Xiao Xiao, what should I do? Now I seem even hungrier. The man's heavy breathing warmed my neck as his kisses trailed from my lips to my chest, lingering greedily. The flimsy garment that might as well have been nothing was finally torn away by him. I remembered the desperate silhouette of the man in my dream, and those trembling words, "I adore you." Sensing Ling Che's restraint and caution, I sighed softly. Fine. Consider it repayment for what I owed him in a past life. Thinking this way, I suddenly forgot my fear of him. Mustering unexpected courage, I flipped over and pinned him beneath me, kissing him while tearing at his clothes. My actions actually managed to stun Ling Che momentarily. When he regained his senses, his handsome face gradually flushed with a rare blush. I was amused by his adorable reaction and couldn't resist kissing his cheek. My dear Prime Minister, let me take the initiative in such matters. I had originally intended to do it just once, but who knew Ling Che would be unsatisfied? He stubbornly pestered me until we went from morning till afternoon, yet the man beneath me seemed to grow increasingly excited, showing no signs of stopping even now. Damn. Does he have endless stamina or what? By the time everything was completely over, the sky had already darkened. Holding Ling Che tightly, I fell into a deep sleep. Ling Che. The next morning, upon waking, I instinctively called out his name. The man's arms around me slowly tightened, and he let out a soft nasal hum without waking. Sitting up in bed, everything had happened too fast. Only now did I fully grasp what had occurred. We did it. I really did it with Ling Che. What should I do now? I had finally mustered the courage to face my relationship with Guci. But now I'm entangled with Ling Che. My mind was a complete mess, and by the time I calmed down, I'd already fled back to the palace. No doubt Ling Che would be furious when he woke up and discovered I'd turned tail and run. He would surely storm into the palace to confront me. I had fully prepared myself to be scolded harshly or even beaten by him. Yet after waiting all morning, Ling Che never showed up. Instead, it was my imperial brother who arrived. Zhu Luo noticed my distracted expression and asked with concern, "Why so listless? What mischief did you get up to last night?" I gave an awkward chuckle. How could I possibly tell him I'd spent the entire night tangled in bed with Ling Che? Seeing my silence, Zhu Luo hesitated before cautiously asking, "You're not thinking about Guci, are you?" Hearing him mention Guci, I shook my head. "Imperial brother, I've come to understand, forced affection isn't sweet, since General Gu doesn't like me. There's no need for me to cling to him desperately. Come to think of it, what exactly did I ever see in Guci? I liked his gentleness, I liked his handsome looks, but I seem to have overlooked something very important. The Guci I liked turned out to be so similar to the Ling Che of the past. Ling Che was a childhood playmate who grew up with my emperor brother. When I was little, I especially loved clinging to him. Back then, Ling Che hadn't fully grown into his features yet. But he was already strikingly handsome. He was always gentle when facing me. But later, after entering officialdom, the hostility in him grew heavier. That gentle Ling Che disappeared. Gradually, we drifted apart. Perhaps wanting to catch his attention, I grew increasingly spoiled and unreasonable. When my emperor brother couldn't control me, he handed this task to Ling Che. Upon hearing this news, I was delighted, yet Ling Che always remained stern-faced around me, frequently punishing me without hesitation. I naturally grew more afraid of him and increasingly disliked him. So when Guci, who resembled him so much from before, appeared, I was inevitably drawn to him. Thinking about it this way, perhaps from the very beginning, the person who occupied that place in my heart was Ling Che. Back then, perhaps because I was acutely aware that Ling Che had a fiancé and could never like me, I shifted my attention to Guci instead. It's just that I never expected, given a second chance, I'd succumb to the temptation of beauty and end up sleeping with Ling Che. Indeed, beauty leads men astray. Zhu Luo had no idea what I was thinking. Hearing my words, he visibly relaxed. It's good that you've come to your senses, girl. He paused, then added, now that you're over Guci, is there someone else you fancy? Should your elder brother play matchmaker? For some reason, I always felt there was an underlying meaning to his words. Back when I asked him to help me connect with Guci, he wasn't nearly this enthusiastic, and he even said Guci wasn't the right person for me. Thinking about Zhu Luo's relationship with Ling Che, my eyes flickered slightly as I pursed my lips. I've just decided to let go of one relationship. How could I possibly start liking someone else so quickly? Zhu Luo cleared his throat uncomfortably. Well, what do you think of the Prime Minister? I think he's quite good. Hearing his words, I wore an expression that said I knew it. This guy was clearly here to speak on Ling Che's behalf. With visible impatience, I shooed the emperor away, adding, I don't want to talk about romantic matters right now. Let me take a breather first. This delay lasted 5 whole days. I've been racking my brains over how to handle things with Ling Che. It's not that I'm unwilling to marry him, but that guy already has a fiancé. Speaking of which, I simply can't make sense of it. Since Ling Che already has a fiancé, how could he possibly like me? Does he expect 2 women to share one husband and enjoy heavenly pleasures together? Dream on, I'm a princess of a nation, after all. Wouldn't it be better to take a few consorts and select some male favorites? Why should I compete with another woman over one man? These past few days, Ling Che hasn't come to see me. Could he be busy dating that fiancé of his? No, I shouldn't think about it. The more I dwell on it, the angrier I get, feeling unbearably frustrated. I suddenly remembered today seems to be the Lantern Festival. So I dismissed my maids and secretly slipped out of the palace alone. I'd only meant to clear my mind, but unexpectedly ran into the male and female leads. I stood on the bridge while Guci and Enruosi drank together in a small boat on the lake. This was my first time seeing the legendary female protagonist, radiantly beautiful. Her every gesture exuded gentle charm. Guci attentively served her soup and dishes, occasionally asking her questions while carefully observing her every move. How wonderful! A perfect match made in heaven, a talented man and a beautiful woman. Without my interference, this golden couple would have fallen in love, married, and lived out their blissful lives together. But as I watched, an unexpected pang of sorrow suddenly struck me. Were all those past events truly from my previous life? After my death, they will continue their perfect love story. My presence was merely decorative, a foil. My obstruction and death will only serve to highlight the hard-won nature of their bond. Instantly, my mood for wandering vanished. I had intended to head straight home, but unexpectedly ran into a few dubious friends I'd made earlier, who insisted on dragging me along to admire the lanterns. Yet as we admired them, a light rain began to fall. As luck would have it, I ran into the male and female leads again. When raindrops began pattering down, most people found themselves trapped beneath the lantern viewing corridor's awning, unprepared with umbrellas. Among them were Guci and Enruosi. Hidden within the crowd, I secretly observed their interactions. Enruosi hadn't brought an umbrella and was dressed lightly, appearing particularly delicate in this chilly season. Guci noticed this detail, so he took off his outer robe and draped it over her shoulders. A rosy blush quickly spread across Enruosi's lovely face. At that moment, Someone arrived. A young servant hurried over with an umbrella and handed it to Guci. Guci took the umbrella and opened it, preparing to leave with an Ruosi. In such a scene of perfect harmony between lovers, with blooming flowers and a bright moon symbolizing eternal union, some damned soul suddenly shouted, "General Gu. The eldest princess is here, aren't you going to escort her back?" At these words, everyone began to jeer, even pushing me right in front of the young couple. My face darkened with exasperation. Seriously, I've already turned over a new leaf, could you stop playing matchmaker? Guci's brows furrowed slightly in hesitation. He glanced at me, then at Ruosi, before finally taking a deep breath. "Your Highness," he said, "could you have someone else escort you back?" I nearly burst out laughing at his words. Sure enough, he's the devoted male lead, actually unafraid of my authority as the Grand Princess. Before I could speak, Ruosu said, "ACI, take the Grand Princess away. It's fine if I get a little wet." Guci frowned slightly and replied with tender concern, "No, it's not fine. You'll catch a cold." Unable to bear their sickeningly sweet display any longer, I cleared my throat. You two go ahead, someone will come pick me up." The words had barely left my mouth when a luxurious carriage pulled up right in front of me, catching me completely off guard. Before I could react, the carriage curtain was drawn aside, and a chilling voice commanded from within, "Ju Xiao, get in." It was Ling Che. I immediately scrambled into the carriage, never once casting a glance at Guci from start to finish. The carriage curtain closed, leaving only Ling Che and me inside the carriage, sitting pressed close together. The air froze momentarily. Ling Che remained silent, and I didn't know what to say either. Just as my mind raced to figure out how to ease the tension, Ling Che spoke. His expression was stern, but a flash of anguish flickered through his eyes. I saw everything. What? I couldn't keep up with his sudden shift in tone. Ling Che abruptly lashed out, reaching to grip my chin with considerable force. I could feel waves of pain radiating from where his fingers dug in. I frowned uncomfortably and struggled against him. "What are you doing? Let go of me." His other hand pinned my arms firmly against my sides. "Do you like him that much? Even knowing he has someone he loves, you still throw yourself at him. How can you be so shameless? Look at the nonsense this man is spouting." Suddenly, I lost my temper. What's gotten into you? I couldn't make heads or tails of what this guy was saying, and why was he flying off the handle for no reason? I haven't even gotten angry yet. Ling Che suddenly lost his strength. He pressed down on me, his chin resting on my shoulder, his voice slightly hoarse as if suppressing something. "Didn't you say you didn't like Guci anymore? Why are you still so upset? Why did you let him escort you back to the palace? What nonsense is this? Is this how you throw a jealous tantrum?" I felt emotionally drained. Where did you get the idea that I'm upset? Did you hear me ask Guci to see me off? Ling Che raised his furry head and asked uncertainly, "You really don't like him anymore?" I nodded. Ling Che suddenly sounded aggrieved. "What about me then?" I couldn't quite follow his train of thought and looked puzzled. "What do you mean, what about you? Do you like me?" This question is so direct. How should I answer? In the silence, I noticed Ling Che's expression seemed somewhat tense, and the atmosphere in the car grew increasingly heavy. I opened my mouth, about to speak, but Ling Che interrupted me. He held me tightly in his arms, both domineering and shameless. "You slept with me, so you should take responsibility. I've already given you 5 days, I can't give you any more. You have to give me an answer now." Oh ho, listen to what this Prime Minister of a nation is saying. Though it's an undeniable fact that I did sleep with him, I cleared my throat. "How do you want me to take responsibility?" Ling Che's eyes instantly brightened. "Marry me." After a pause, he added, "Or I could marry you instead." I nearly laughed but then remembered something and put on a serious face. "If you marry me, what about your fiancé? Now it was Ling Che's turn to be confused. What fiancé? His expression seemed genuine, but I still said indignantly, "Didn't you publicly claim to have a fiancé? Do you think I'm stupid?" Ling Che froze for a moment, then suddenly laughed. He pinched my cheek and explained, "That was just an excuse." An excuse? Ling Che nodded. "I'm already 24, many ministers at court, seeing that I've never married, have been eager to wed their daughters to me, finding it troublesome to reject them one by one. I simply made up an excuse to brush them off." He paused. "I don't have a fiancé. But there is someone I fancy." Well, damn, so the truth I'd imagined turns out to be like this. Then didn't I die a most unjust death in my past life? Thinking about my past life, I suddenly recalled Ling Che's agonized expression before my coffin, along with his heartfelt confession. So, the beloved person he's referring to now should be me, right? Although the misunderstanding has been cleared up, I don't intend to let Ling Che have his way so easily, after all. He didn't spare any effort in bullying me before. When it comes to bullying, I confronted him. "If you like me, then why were you so fierce every time you faced me before? Not only did you make me stand facing the wall as punishment, but you also didn't hesitate to hit me hard." Ling Che hugged me tightly. "It's my fault. I shouldn't have been so harsh with you. But if I hadn't been strict, given your arrogant and domineering personality, I was afraid you'd get into serious trouble." I knew he meant well, but I still felt uncomfortable inside. As if sensing I was still upset, he kissed me while softening his tone. "Xiao Xiao, I was wrong. You can punish me, but please don't ignore me." Okay, how could I resist such Ling Che? All I could do was nod. He seized the opportunity. "So you're agreeing to be with me?" I rolled my eyes at him. "In your dreams?" Ling Che put on a pitiful expression. "Xiao Xiao." I lifted my chin, deliberately making things difficult for him. "It's not impossible for me to agree, but you'll have to make me happy first." Ling Che's eyes lit up as he flashed a smile. "No problem." With those words, Ling Che whisked me back to his private residence once more. "Wait here for me." No sooner had we entered than Ling Che disappeared after leaving those words hanging in the air. I don't know what he went to do. I can only wait for him in the hall. But as the rain grew heavier and he still hadn't returned, I began to feel anxious. After what felt like ages, I finally saw Ling Che's figure running back through the rain from afar. I hurriedly grabbed an umbrella to meet him. Ling Che was completely drenched from head to toe. He ducked under my umbrella and showed me something he'd been cradling against his chest. "Isn't it pretty?" "I picked it from the mountain," he said. I stood frozen in place, staring at the bouquet in his arms, flowers of every color. Exceptionally beautiful. "I didn't know which kind you'd like, so I picked them all." "Don't just stand there. Come inside." With that, Ling Che grabbed my hand and pulled me into the room, holding the flowers, their petals still glistening with raindrops. My heart swelled with both tenderness and aching concern. This late in the season, only Mount Morchio outside the city still bore blooming flowers. Ling Che had actually gone into the mountains during heavy rain. Was he trying to get himself killed? Fool! Ling Che flung off his dripping outer robe, watching me cautiously as he asked, "Do you like it?" I nodded. The man wrung out the clothes in his hands. "As long as you like it, Ling Che." I called out, What's wrong?" Ling Che looked at me. I stepped forward, stood on tiptoe, and gently kissed his lips. The usually decisive man froze. Just as I was about to pull away, he suddenly held me tight and deepened the kiss. I don't know how long we kissed before separating.
Unable to resist, knowing that if this continued, I'd devour him completely like last time. I stopped myself just in time. Holding him close, I planted a loud kiss at the corner of his mouth. "All right, let's sleep now." Ling Che took a long moment to recover. "That's it." I flashed a mischievous grin, pretending not to know. "What else? What more did you want, you little devil?" The man wore an expression caught between laughter and exasperation. kissing me relentlessly before finally letting go. Sweet dreams all night long. The next day, when I woke up, Ling Che had already left for the morning court session. However, he had instructed someone to prepare my favorite breakfast. After enjoying a delightful morning meal, I leisurely made my way back to the palace. No sooner had I arrived at my chambers than Zhu Luo, fresh from court, came uninvited. When he saw me, he gave me a suggestive smile. "So you and Ling Che are together now?" I raised an eyebrow. "Who told you that?" Zhu Luo pursed his lips and clicked his tongue twice. "I saw it myself. You little thing, not bad." I looked confused. "What did you see?" Zhu Luo pointed at his own neck. "At this morning's court session, Ling Che had quite a few marks here. All the ministers saw them." Before I could say anything, he leaned closer with a gossipy expression. "Did you and Ling Che, is this something we should be talking about?" I pretended to be coy and said, "Well, he told me not to tell." Zhu Luo looked somewhat disappointed. "Oh, I see. But I can tell you, just don't tell anyone else." All right. Zhu Luo instantly perked up with excitement, covering my face shyly. I murmured, "Ling Che is really ferocious." As soon as these words were spoken, Zhu Luo instantly perked up. "How big?" "Yeah," I nodded, covering my face. "Does it last long?" I kept nodding. "Lots of variety." I nodded eagerly. "What are you guys doing?" Ling Che walked in with furrowed brows. Zhu Luo immediately straightened up upon seeing him and gave an awkward chuckle. "Nothing. Haha." Ling Che came over and sat beside me, taking a sip of water before asking, "What's going on?" I took a step back, putting on an innocent face. "Just chatting." "Chatting about what?" About things we shouldn't talk about." I lied through my teeth. "Just some random trivial matters." Ling Che snorted coldly. "What's the point of getting so close just to chat about trivial matters?" Wait. That tone, that inflection. Someone's jealous, isn't he? Definitely jealous. I smiled and hooked my arm through his, planting a kiss on his cheek while soothing him. "Be good. Don't fuss. This is my imperial brother, my own flesh and blood." Ling Che cleared his throat slightly awkwardly and leaned close to my ear. "Xiao Xiao. Does this mean you've already agreed to be with me?" Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Zhu Luo watching the scene with amusement. My face flushed as I pushed the man in front of me, signaling him to know his limits. But Ling Che wasn't afraid of making a scene. He simply pulled me into his embrace and said, "Xiao Xiao, I still bear your mark on my neck. Everyone knows I'm taken. And His Majesty is already aware of our relationship. Won't you just accept me, please?" This man before me seems to have suddenly gained insight. Ever since the misunderstanding was cleared, he's been occasionally using that gentle tone to act coquettishly toward me. Who could resist this? Certainly not me. Not caring about the spectator beside us, I wrapped my arms around Ling Che's neck, tilted my head up, and planted a kiss at the corner of his lips. "Ling Che, I like you. Be my consort." "What did you say?" he interrupted me, cupping my face in his hands. His tone tinged with nervousness. I covered his hands holding my face, my eyes curving into crescents as I said gently, "I said, I like you." He chuckled softly, his eyes brimming with tenderness. His lips gently covered mine, his gaze sincere and fervent, utterly devoid of any ulterior thoughts. After what felt like an eternity, he buried his face in the crook of my neck, calling my name over and over again. His voice was hoarse beyond recognition. I cradled his head and kissed his crimson-tinged eyelids. Ling Che clung to me tightly with both arms and legs, as if afraid I might vanish into thin air. How could I possibly disappear? We missed each other in our past lives, but in this lifetime I'll stay by his side forever. I believe we'll be happy together. Even if we're not the main characters of some grand story, we will be happy forever.